We're back with another episode of AppStories brought to you by Collide. This is our series of special daily WWDC shows. And today I've got with me, of course, Federico Viticci. I'm John Voorhees, too, by the way, in case anybody was wondering. Hello.
We know.
All right, I know. Everybody's figured that out. Well,
hello.
There's always somebody new, Federico. There's always someone new. We hope there's somebody new.
You are so relaxed these days because you're in California. You're forgetting your own name.
I know.
You're forgetting things. You are already becoming the typical, like, the California stereotype.
I'm just hanging out. I'm just hanging out every day.
Yeah. Just chilling there in Cupertino. Yeah. Mm.
You know, we brought somebody along to be a little more professional than me to help us out.
Yes.
The TVOS guy's here.
Hello. I've had a big week. TVOS, man. It's everywhere. Everywhere. You guys, like, you haven't been on the forums, okay? And we're popping off on the forums. I will say, John, Federico, I have a very different opinion of John forgetting his name. I think that's shown the kind of week John's had so far, where, like, he doesn't even remember his own name anymore. You know, he's been backwards and forwards.
I'm not sure where I am anywhere, Myke.
I see him on Find My Friends. He's flitting back between the campus all day, every day. I'm watching that guy on the highway, you know?
I always forget to Find My Friends, that I can actually see what John is doing. I should remember to do this more often.
Yeah, you can spy on me, Federico. Yeah. Make sure I'm, sitting at my desk working or something. I don't know. But
wow, that's some serious severance.
It is. No, Federico's a great guy to work with. People, he's not a severance. He doesn't have any severance.
At least that's what he tells you to say. You know.
Well, I could be severed right now, and that's just what I say when I'm on a podcast with Federico.
Yeah. Well, okay, so before we get started, John, what's the giveaway update?
All right, so we have a couple of new giveaways for today. We have both Highlights, the PDF highlighting app, as well as NotePlan, which is a markdown note-taking app that kind of incorporates the calendar and a bunch of other things like, backlinks and that sort of thing. So I've said a couple of times that I was going to make these go live right after the show, and I didn't do it either time because I've been really busy. So I'm not going to promise today to do anything other than
That's not where I thought that was going.
These things live.
I thought you were going to be, but today I definitely will do it. But it's like, nah, whatever, man.
No, I'm not going to. I'm just going to do it whenever I remember to do it this afternoon. But they're coming. They're coming soon.
I don't even know what to say anymore to this guy, honestly.
This is why you got to have him Find My Friends. You got to keep your eye on this one, you know?
Yesterday was quite a day. Did you see me when I was at the Starbucks yesterday, Myke? I was editing the ADA episode at a local Starbucks.
That's an interesting decision to make.
Well, I had to not be at the apartment I'm staying at for technical reasons. So, I was working at a Starbucks.
Okay, fair enough. I would offer you to come here, but you don't want to do that.
No, I'd rather not. Sorry.
Hey, John, my desk is available to you whenever you want it. John, just come on. What could go wrong, John? There's a big desk.
What could go wrong?
I just cleaned it.
Just come on over, buddy.
Why does everything in here smell like Clorox? Oh, man.
So today we want to talk about the Mac side of things. So macOS Ventura and the new Macs that we got at WWDC. And obviously we needed to have, besides John, we needed to have another true Mac user because I don't have the street cred to call myself a true Mac user. So
that's not what you were saying a couple of weeks ago. A couple of weeks ago, you were like, "Hi, my name's Federico, and I use the Mac now."
He was just posing. Yeah, he's just posing.
I use the Mac, but I'm not a Mac user. It's different. It's different. Like you can drive a car, but you're not a driver. Like there's a next step to qualify. Anyway. So hardware. I want to start from the hardware. Myke, so you have an iMac. You have a MacBook Pro, right? What do you think of the new Air?
Okay, so here's the one. Apple did me a favor, all right? If they would have made this thing in the iMac colors, absolute no-brainer for me. I wouldn't be able to stay away, right? Like, if I could have got an orange laptop, right, I'd be like, well, I already would have put my money down, even though I don't think you can yet, but I would have found a way because I would be that excited about it. What they have done instead, I'm really, really intrigued about it. So you very rightly said I have a MacBook Pro and an iMac. My iMac is the machine that I'm using for recording and editing and stuff like that. And I have been considering what it would be like to use a MacBook Pro for those tasks. So just have the MacBook Pro set up at my recording desk, and it's just always there, and then have a MacBook Air as the machine I take to and from home and stuff. Because my plan was always to eventually that iMac would become a home computer. Like I don't have like a fixed home computer. And I think as we move into the future, a machine like that can fit very well in a living room or something, which I wouldn't have necessarily said from previous machines, right? This just has a nice design for an interior design perspective. So I am very intrigued. I think the thing that excites me the most about the MacBook Air is the design. I don't really know what I was expecting, kind of visual design-wise, but it surprised me, kind of the lengths that they've gone to. I would like to know from you, John, how thin does it actually feel? Because some statistics I've been looking at, it's like as thin as an iPad Pro, basically, that seems wild to me.
Yeah, it's kind of remarkable. You wouldn't have really thought. I have an M1 MacBook Air, and it's already super thin and light. But when you pick up the new one, it really is. It's noticeably thinner. Now, it's not substantially lighter, so there's not a big difference there. But it is really thin. I really like what they've done. I mean, it's not got that teardrop shape anymore. It's more like the MacBook Pro. It's more uniform across the entirety of the machine. But it looks great too. I mean, the Midnight one looks fantastic in person, especially with the dark keyboard. Mm-hmm. That's the one that I would get if I were buying one.
I would too, just because it's different, right? But like it's still not what I wanted, which was like everybody, like a rainbow color selection.
No, I agree. I would have liked the colors as well, and orange would have been the one I got too. I'm very sorely tempted to get this because I love my MacBook Air. I do feel like occasionally I don't have enough memory. It's got 16 gigs of memory, and there are certain tasks that I do that saturate all that memory, and it starts slowing down. And being able to get 24 gigs of unified memory is a big deal. I mean, I've been watching with my Mac Studio how much memory I typically use on some of those more intensive tasks, and it does occasionally go up above 24 too, but not very often. So I think that would be closer to a sweet spot for the kind of work I do. That combined with, I don't know, the MagSafe is very attractive to me because I do find with only 2 USB-C ports that, right now I am recording. I'm recording this right. I'm recording this with Ethernet connected to one USB-C port and my USB audio interface connected to the other and running off a battery because I don't have any way to charge this if I have 2 things connected. And that alone would make a big difference when I'm doing portable recording like this.
When you say that, right, like Federico had the same realization I had a couple of days ago too. Why did they ever get rid of MagSafe? Like, that was such a stupid decision. Because I understand the flexibility of USB-C charging, which you can still do, and that's awesome. But when they brought that MacBook out, the original 12-inch MacBook, they never should have gotten rid of MagSafe for that because you could still then have 2 usable ports while charging. It's a silly decision in hindsight. Well, a lot of that was a silly decision in hindsight, but that was just another part of it.
Yeah, I always forget that your MacBook Air does not have MagSafe.
Yeah.
And now I remember you've been using USB-C hubs and all that kind of stuff because you only have 2 USB-C ports.
Yeah.
So you're getting one of these.
Yeah,
John,
probably.
Right? Yeah. Okay.
Probably because
you are this is the computer for you at the moment.
It really is. I mean, because my approach with the Mac has really become have a very powerful desktop machine because I work at my desk most of the time, but then have something that doesn't have to be quite as powerful, but is nice and light and portable, which is exactly what the MacBook Air is. And there are just a few little things that are niggling issues, and that fact that I don't have MagSafe is one of them. And I'm really attracted to the bigger screen. I mean, 13.6, it's only 0.6 inches more, but it's awfully close to that 14-inch MacBook Pro, which if there was a reason I would have gotten the MacBook Pro, it would have been for the screen more than anything else. Because, as I said, I really don't need a super powerful portable machine, but I do like to have a really good screen and as big as I can get in a really ultralight package.
I know you're not saying this, but of course the screen isn't as good, right? Like it's way better, but the
No, it
screen
isn't.
on the MacBook Pro has got ProMotion and all that kind of stuff. But
Yep, absolutely. And I've got Retina now. But it is a compromise. That's one of the compromises I'm willing to make.
I do think it is still a better display than the one you currently have, though. I think because they were talking about it now does this and now has this. Like, I don't remember exactly what those things were.
It's liquid. I think it's liquid Retina, and I think it may have more color space.
Yeah, and I think it's got more nits. We love the nits. More nits.
Yes, 100 more nits. I think it's always good to have lots of nits. I have an aside, Federico. I was in the...
Yeah, me too.
All right, we're going to compete for this.
But you go first with yours.
'Cause I'm in charge here. We were in that business, that developer center the other day, and they turned on this display that can go to 1,000 nits. They put it at 400, and I thought my eyes were going to be burned out of my head. It was unbelievable what that screen can do. To give you that's my nit story of the day.
What screen? What is the screen?
It's the screen. It's in the theater that's in the developer center. That's where the talk
big
show
kind
was
of
recorded.
Like presentation display kind of thing that they have there.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
It's there's a big theater that's holds a couple hundred people that the talk show was recorded at yesterday, and that screen can get incredibly bright.
My aside was more like a question because we've been talking about USB-C, and I realized that I don't really have a good USB-C hub for my iPad Pro anymore. So I could use recommendations for a USB-C hub. I don't even know if this exists for the iPad Pro or the MacBook Pro, but basically I want to have a hub that shouldn't be too big. And I really just want to have one USB-C port for fast charging, whatever the iPad Pro supports. Is it, 45 watts, 67 watts? I don't know. And another one for Thunderbolt display.
Right.
Well, that's not a USB-C hub then, is it?
It does.
No, it isn't really.
It's a Thunderbolt hub then.
I use the OWC hub. It's quite big, but I really like it.
It's the problem, Federico, is that the Thunderbolt 4 hubs are all really big and chunky.
They all need power,
even if
too.
Right, and even if the box isn't super huge, there's a power brick connected to the cord that's enormous.
Huge.
But hold on, though, because, John, you have the C-Force display as well. You have the C-Force display.
Yeah, I do.
That's not a Thunderbolt display.
That's true.
So I'll tell you why I'm confused. Last night, I was trying iPadOS 16's external display support.
Right.
I was trying this old Satechi USB-C hub that I have with an HDMI cable to go from the hub plugged into the iPad Pro to the display. And HDMI was not working. So I figured it's a problem of the hub. Then what I did, from my drawer, I just grabbed a random Thunderbolt cable and I plugged it into the iPad Pro and into one of the USB-C ports of the C-Force display. And it worked. But the C-Force, it's not Thunderbolt. So I assume it's doing the display port over USB-C.
Yeah, probably.
If it's, So I guess I don't need a Thunderbolt.
No, you need a dock.
I just I need something with USB, with display port over USB-C.
Yeah, I have to look and see which ones support that.
Is USB-C hubs and all, it's always a nightmare. Like, this is all the problems I had, right?
Yep.
About what order of things connected in, and that can mess everything up.
Yeah, I think that the 12 South Stego might work, Federico, because I've used that. Yeah, I've used that extensively, including using a USB-C to DisplayPort cable with it with an LG monitor. So that could work for you. You just get a USB-C to HDMI or just use USB-C 3 to the C-Force.
Does it have a retractable cable?
It does. Yeah, it's really nice.
Oh, this is not... Oh.
It's my favorite. It's my favorite dock that's not like a full-on Thunderbolt 4 hub.
If you want something that's just USB-C, this is the best one because it's tiny. It's very portable, very light, and it doesn't, as John says, no power or anything.
Oh, it just...
it
does power delivery?
Yeah, it's durable, too. I've had it for probably 3 or 4 years now.
See, John, I should always listen to you.
You should. There's an article. There's a review on the site if you'd like to read my blog.
I know. But you say so many things.
I do.
I lose track of them. you know. Anyway, so okay, macOS Ventura, because I don't really want to talk about the MacBook Pro with the touch bar. I'm sorry. Do we need to talk about it, you guys?
It's useless.
Well, other than why does it exist? I don't understand why this exists.
It's a price point. It feels a price point.
Okay.
It's a Tim Cook era thing. We can move on. You know what I mean? It's just like whatever. Like
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah,
you know
it
what
could
I
be
reckon it
recommended
is?
to anyone.
It's like corporate buyers.
Probably, I guess, because it's got Pro in the name, and
Well, but just because it's
No.
like it's a machine,
And the
it's
price.
a certain price point, and everybody knows how to support it. Like they just
Yeah.
keep doing it.
Yeah,
Education, and it's the same reason they keep the cheaper Air around or whatever, right? It's just like hits the price point and hits either education or corporation.
This episode of AppStories and all of our WWDC coverage this week is brought to you by Collide. Collide sends employees important, timely, and relevant security recommendations for their Linux, Mac, and Windows devices right inside Slack. Collide is perfect for organizations that care deeply about compliance and security, but don't want to get there by locking down devices to the point where they become unusable. Instead of frustrating your employees, Collide educates them all about security and device management while directing them to fix important problems. Visit collide.com/appstories to sign up today. That's KOLIDE.com/appstories. Enter your email when prompted to receive your free Collide gift bundle after trial activation. At Collide, they know that IT admins are the most significant untapped resource and are key to solving the most challenging to fix security issues. Things like instructing developers to set passphrases on unencrypted SSH keys, finding plain text two-factor backup codes, and teaching end users how to store them securely, and convincing employees to uninstall evil browser extensions that may be selling their browser history. Those are just some of the many use cases that aren't solved by locking down devices. You can try Collide with all of its features on an unlimited number of devices for free for 14 days with no credit card required. Try it out at collide.com/appstories. That's KOLIDE.com/appstories. Our thanks to Collide for their support of AppStories and all of our coverage of WWDC at MacStories.
All right, macOS Ventura. Have you guys played with it?
No.
Like, do you have the beta installed on anything?
No, I
Okay.
haven't, because
John,
I'm
do you?
traveling and I have to edit these shows, and I don't want to have anything bad happen.
It's the riskiest beta, I think, macOS, right?
It really is, especially when you're on the road.
Yes.
I saw that you can install it as a virtual machine if you don't want to actually install it. What's it called? Is it
Parallels?
VMware?
Yeah.
I saw that there's already support for virtual machines for the beta of Ventura. But yeah, so I kind of wanted to hear from both of you about Stage Manager, because on the iPad side of things, I think it's easier to get excited about this because we never really had any kind of multi-windowing before. So like, there's a bunch of problems with Stage Manager on iPad. In fact, I have a list of like feedback items that I'm gonna file today because like this is the time to make your feature requests. But on the Mac, there have been alternatives for ages. So I wanted to know from both of you, from the perspective of longtime Mac users, and you, Myke, you've used the iPad for years, and then you kind of went back to the Mac last year, or 2 years ago. Anyway, with the M1 Macs. How do you feel about Stage Manager?
When they showed it off, I had two initial thoughts. I was like, I think that's a little ugly, like the little stage thing on the side. I don't like the way that looks. And two, kind of like, I don't really understand why I would use this. Then I've been playing around with the iPad beta, and so I've been using it there. And I've been thinking about it a bit more, and I've done a full 180. I think Stage Manager might be made for Mac users like me. And I'll explain why. One, I've said before, like Federico, I'm not a fan of overlapping windows. I do it on the Mac, unlike Federico. Like, I do have windows that overlap, but I really don't like the way it looks. It feels cluttered and messy. But I don't change this as such because I like to have all my apps open. I have a really powerful computer. Like, I just want my apps open all the time. I want to be able to click my app and it's just there, right? Like, I don't like apps reopening. they open quickly, but sometimes they load content or whatever. Like, I just want my apps open. I have a powerful machine. It should be able to survive that. I use Moom on David Sparks' insistence. So I've been using that for a while for some like window positioning stuff, but that's kind of all I have it do. But I also use Spaces a lot. And so I thought this combination of features, I think Stage Manager could be for me. I could still have all my apps open. I can see them on the side, so I can quickly like tap between them and get into like the different pairs that I need, whilst also keeping my desktop mostly clear or way clearer than it is now. I'm actually really excited to play with this on the Mac. And I also thought it would make my kind of Mac and iPad life better maybe than it is now, because I would have actually a more consistent experience moving from one to the other. So
right. Yeah,
I'm actually pretty excited about it.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective, Mike. I feel kind of similarly to you, and then my initial reaction was I don't really know about this, and as I started going through the materials and looking at the screenshots and seeing it in more places, I started warming to it a little bit because, the way I work on my Mac is I have a lot of apps open at one time, and I tolerate the overlap and the big pile of windows pretty well. It doesn't bother me that much. However, it can get messy, and it does make flipping between, maybe you have, 7 things open, but you really at the moment only need to be working on 3 of those apps. Now you'll be able to pair those together in a group and flip to that group without losing the benefit of having those other apps open. Whereas before, even though I'm a big command tab person flipping through things, I always find myself kind of accidentally flipping to the wrong thing, and now they're in a weird order, and now it's harder to get back and forth between what I want to use. And having them grouped, I think, will make a big difference. Plus, you can get back to the desktop really easily, which I kind of like too.
Yeah, I recently tried kind of like creating a system like this in Spaces where because I have a bunch of different types of work that I do, and I have apps for those types of work, and I wanted to kind of split them up. But what I didn't like is I'm constantly swiping, right? Or like over to space 5, now back to space 1, or like it just I didn't like it. But if I could have them all just always there, like, I don't know, I think I'm pretty excited about it. Also, I think this is probably a way better feature for laptops, because like on my studio display, I have way more space for stuff, but on my laptop right now, my MacBook Pro, basically every app is covering each other completely is the way that my life is right now,
Mine too.
And so I feel like it's going to be really good. I've surprised myself actually, just like in having a little bit of time using it on the iPad. I'm kind of like, I think this is a big deal. I know you spoke about this already, but I think this is actually a pretty big deal for the iPad too. I think they've got work to go on it, but this really feels, I said it's unconnected, this feels like the new foundation. Like they had the original foundation, which was split screen, that has gotten so old and tired. This is not perfect, but split screen was never perfect. This actually feels like a more logical point to build into the future from on iPad OS as well. So I'm excited about this feature.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's very exciting on iPad. There's obviously problems right now. Obviously, there's like a component to this, which is the initial confusion. Just because we're not used to the overlapping model on iPad at all. But there's also I think genuine problems right now. And I'm sure that this could get fixed in the beta cycle. It's very confusing, for example, how to close windows in Stage Manager at the moment. You can only minimize them. There's no way to close them. The external display integration is very broken at the moment. By very broken, I mean if you carefully arrange a workspace on an external display, and then if you accidentally click one of the icons for one of the apps in that workspace on your iPad, the entire workspace gets transferred back to the iPad and sort of destroying everything that you carefully arranged on the display. And you gotta move back the windows one by one back to the external. It's very messy. So there need to be some, I think it's a combination of needing to have more controls and needing to have like more ties between different windows. Like right now it's kind of messy and all over the place. So yeah, I'm gonna file feedback. Like I already have a list of items that I want to request, but I do think it's exciting, and I do think for the iPad especially, like I was working on this today. I was watching some sessions, and it was great because like I had the developer app open and I had Obsidian open, and then I figured, oh, you know what? I actually need to look up something in Safari, and I just dragged in Safari, and then there was like this segment of a session that I didn't particularly care about because one of the let me show you some code segments. I was like, yeah, this is gonna last a couple of minutes. I'm just gonna catch up on Twitter, and I dragged in Twitter, and so suddenly I realized, oh, I'm doing like 4 things at once, and I didn't have to come up with these wild workarounds to do it, and it was nice.
That is nice. Although then you probably tried to type in Obsidian and cried because it's not working so well on the iPad right now, right?
Wait, what is this? How's your text editor now, boys?
I actually already sent this to the Obsidian developers, and they looked into it, and it seems to be an iPadOS bug where this new overlapping window mode. Essentially, even if you have a hardware keyboard connected, the system doesn't tell the app, and so Obsidian shows you an empty area. Like an empty
the shape of a keyboard,
where the software with the shape of the software keyboard, but the software keyboard isn't actually shown, and so you have half of the window covered by this empty.
Oh, I've
area.
seen something like this, like where the text editing box covers content.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So this appears to be an initial bug of iPadOS 16 Beta 1 because the system is not telling the app to, where essentially like the boundaries are supposed to be. So, but anyway, Rod was asking in the Discord, so wait, how do you close windows in iPadOS Stage Manager? Good question. You can only remove them from your workspace, and you do this by clicking the multitasking menu. And in the multitasking menu, there's a minus button now, and that doesn't close the window. It ejects the window from the workspace back into the, what's it called? The stage, the recent tray on the left side.
But by itself.
But it doesn't close the window. So if you want to quit an app from Stage Manager, you need to remove it first, right? Then open the main app switcher, the one with all the apps, and drag it upwards from there. There's no close window button. Yes, it does sound overly complicated, and it is. They should figure out, it needs a lot more consistency between all these different gestures that you can do. Because really the problem is, if you think about it, now we have... how many app switchers do we have on iPadOS now? We have Stage Manager, we have the app switcher, we have the window switcher.
Right.
The shelf seems to be gone. At least in Stage Manager mode, there is no shelf anymore.
Still got Command Tab, right? In that.
We have like 5 or 6 different app switcher UIs on iPadOS at the moment. So when I say that we need to have more consistency, that's what I mean. Like, they need to clean this up a little bit. Anyway, macOS. John, why do we have a section called "Is it the year of macOS gaming"?
Because
was this an ironic segment?
A little bit. I've been thinking about this again, Federico, and I feel like we're at the point with macOS gaming where the conventional wisdom is always that Apple's always been bad at gaming and always will be. And it's always times like that when I feel like it's time to reevaluate this stuff and keep your eyes open to see if it's actually going to change and that something might actually be happening. And I don't know. I mean, I'm very skeptical. We just did an episode on AppStories about this not long ago, and I'm just as skeptical today as I was then. But I did get to thinking about a few things like Metal 3 and some of the new technologies for fast loading of games that have been introduced. And Apple's clearly interested in games on the Mac based on what they said during the keynote. And while I don't think the Mac market is big enough to really compete on its own with consoles or PCs, the fact that we now have new ways to target multiple platforms more easily when developers are making apps means that a developer can make an iOS or iPadOS game and target the Mac a lot easier than in the past. And with things like Metal 3 and the advancement of those technologies, I'm wondering whether, the Mac gets dragged along for the ride with the giant market of the iPhone. You combine all that with the iPad and the Mac, it's possible that the gaming might actually become something. And we've seen, we talked to one of the ADA winners who has a game that has really fluid console approaching graphics in Marvel Future Revolution. And while that kind of game is the exception rather than the rule, I do think we're starting to see more console-like or PC-like games coming to the Mac. And I'm just keeping my eye on it, I guess, is all I'm saying. I'm still very skeptical, but I think that Apple seems to be trying. I just don't know if they get it. I mean, as an organization, if they really understand what gaming is and how it differs from regular apps, as we talked about in that episode. But yeah, I think there's some potential here.
Myke, what about, would you do gaming on the Mac?
It's probably it's not going to be my first choice. However, I actually am on the side of I think they're taking this way more seriously than they have in a long time. The part of the presentation, it really kind of like pricked my ears was like when they spoke about just like a throwaway line of there are also now more Macs in the market than they've ever been. That sounded like a line that they go and tell game development studios. Like,
right. And the GPUs are getting so much more powerful now too in these new in the M2. So
it very much sounded to me like that's the 1-2 punch of like, hey, well, I actually think it's a 3-1-3 punch. We have a really powerful Macs now. Like they're as powerful as anything else in the comparable class on the PC side, right? On the laptops especially, but anywhere, right? And if you do the work to interpret for our system, you can also bring it to, have you heard about these things called iPads and iPhones? You can bring it to those as well. And then also, if you want to do this work for the Mac, there are now more Macs available than there's ever been. Like, the fact that they showed No Man's Sky and Resident Evil Village is like, that is very different, right? Like, I know No Man's Sky is an older game, but it's almost like a game as a service game now, right? Like, they're always adding new content to it.
Yeah, it is.
But Resident Evil Village is a brand new game.
It is. It just came out 2021 in the fall, I think.
So that is a different Apple to me, right? And I also think that they need to get back in. They need to have a new, fresh approach for the gaming market if they're expecting VR to be a big part of their future, right? Like they need to ingratiate themselves to serious game developers because VR games, it's going to be way more complicated than building a game for an iPhone. Like no matter any good VR experience, for the time being, I can imagine that's going to be made by a typical game studio, right? Or like someone who really, really knows what they're doing. It's going to be a way higher barrier to entry. I feel like they have to be doing work, and I'm sure they are, to try and get these companies on board, right? Like companies already working on VR projects, and to try and get them to understand that Apple is a good place for their games.
All right, I think we can wrap this up here and then jump into the post show for AppStories Plus members.
All right.
What do you think, John?
I think we can wrap it up, Federico.
Mm-hmm.
All right, everybody. That's it for this episode of AppStories. I want to thank Myke Hurley for joining us. Thank you, tvOS guy.
Oh, anytime. tvOS, it's got stuff, man. You just wait. It's
All right.
going to be awesome. And thank you for giving me something to do today.
You're welcome. I want to thank our sponsor, too, and that's Collide. You can find me and Federico over at macstories.net. Federico is at Fetici on Twitter and Instagram. That's VITICCI. And I'm at John Voorhees, JOHNVOORHWS. And Michael Hurley is iMyke everywhere.
I got the full name treatment.
You did. Talk to you later, Federico.
Ciao, John.